Hey, what's going on, guys? It's David here from Genzio. We are in Denver, Colorado for ETH Denver. I just wrapped up with Jake from Hedera. We spoke about Hedera, HBAR, and really what he's been up to and what they are up to. They are truly on the cutting edge, and we just had a fantastic interview. Spoke about what's to come with them, as well as this bridge between Web2, Web3. Yeah, I really hope you guys enjoy it and look forward to hearing what you think. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's David here from Genzio. We're in Denver, Colorado for ETH Denver. I'm here with Jake of Hedera. Jake, how you doing?
I'm good, David, man. Really good, thanks. A couple of days into Denver, coming from the UK, so I had a bit of jet lag, but feeling good now. A few days in. HederaCon today, and ETH Denver for the rest of my time here.
Okay. And how so far? Thoughts about Denver?
Better than LA.
Oh, okay.
I'll say that. I was in LA about a year and a half ago for another sort of Hedera. It was actually a community-run event in LA, yeah, and that was a bit of a shock to the system, especially sort of skiing the old Skid Row and that.
Yeah.
Denver's been much better. The border, even just sort of when I came and I arrived at border control, the guy at the desk was much more chill.
Yeah.
At LA, he gave me a grilling, man. Yeah. Where are you from?
Oh.
And it's like, so yeah, so I was like, I heard about that. Sort of, I don't know if you know this stereotype when you're not American coming into the US, there is a bit of a tension at border control. They really want to make sure that you're by the books. But no, in Denver they were chill, and yeah, it's been good so far. Much sunnier as well than I expected. Which was also good.
I'm happy you got through border control.
Yeah, we made it. It was much easier then.
Yeah, cool, man, cool. Well, let's HederaCon. Tell us about HederaCon. How was it?
Yeah, so it was amazing. It was actually really, really good. We've got feedback from people who are obviously part of the community, but also there were lots of people from different communities. We obviously had Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano. He was there talking with Lehman Baird, the founder of the consensus algorithm and Hashgraph and Swells, whatever it was called back then. And I think it was just a really, really well executed event. Shout out to the team. So Lena and Alison, they've done an amazing job at sort of organising all of this. The venue was great, the food was great, all of the talks were on time, and a real depth and breadth of quality and different topics. So all of it was streamed. If you do want to sort of go back and look on it, it'll be on the Hedera YouTube channel, but highly recommend checking it out. And yeah, there was a main event, main stage, as well as a tech stage, which was covering some of the recent innovations that we've been working on. So all in all, pretty damn good.
Okay, awesome. Now I wanted to touch on HederaCon first because you mentioned it initially, but let's take a few steps back, and why don't you tell us a little bit about Hedera?
Okay, yeah, sure. So Hedera, it is a layer 1 blockchain. It follows, it's public, meaning anyone can interact with it, create an account and create tokens and whatnot, but it's taken a slightly different approach to some of the other top layer ones like Ethereum, Solana, which are permissionless. Mm-hmm. So Hedera is a permissioned public blockchain, meaning at the moment, only a certain amount of entities, it's 39 in total, members of the governing council, the organizational structure that runs and operates Hedera. They're sort of leading companies like Google, IBM. Recently, Mondelez were added. We've even had Nairobi Stock Exchange, so there's financial players involved now, as well as universities. We've got some top unis in the UK, my home country, like LSE, UCL, so sort of pretty. Also one in India as well, really big, IIT Madras, big uni in India. These are the entities which are on the governing council who currently run the permissioned nodes. So we've got a different approach to governance, as I mentioned earlier, which I guess the hypothesis was when a business looks to adopt a L1 technology, especially a public one, then having that governance infrastructure in place gives it a bit more credibility, gives it a bit more security and sense of, okay, I trust what is going to be the decisions that are going to be made in this network. We do have permissionless nodes on the roadmap. It's not sort of there yet. There are other priorities first. But yeah, that's basically what Hedera is. You can create tokens. This is more for the developers now. You can, well, I guess the business people are interested in tokenization too, but create tokens, deploy smart contracts using the EVM. So we've got EVM equivalents. And there's another interesting service called the consensus service, which is almost forget about tokens, but it leverages some of the main properties that make blockchain desirable. Things like immutability, transparency, public-private key signatures, so you know where stuff's coming from. And it does it in a way where it's just specifically for any sort of data that you want. You can create what's called a topic, and then you can just publish arbitrary messages to that topic. And that message might be something like, that might be a claim of a particular sustainability claim, like carbon capture. You can sort of go, I've got this device which is sequestering carbon, and every second it might populate how much carbon dioxide has been captured in that last second, which can then be used to create a token. But there's all sorts of other things that you can do. Anything where you don't need a token, but actually having some sort of data, whatever format that is, might just be like a little message, or it might be a more structured JSON object for those of you who are developers. You can push this onto the consensus service and have it so that it's completely transparent and auditable. And I'm really quite excited about the stuff that gets built with that. We had an awesome project which is now shut down, but that was one of the council members, Avery Dennison. They're big in the RFID game, and they were doing a sustainability project where they were tracking sort of the life cycle of their supply chain, going through putting all of those data points, where it's been transferred to, where it's coming from, onto the consensus service to then get a better understanding as to that life supply chain cycle.
Okay, wow. All right. A lot going on there.
There's a lot going on. I've just scratched the surface.
No. But it's really refreshing when you talk to somebody that can explain something really well, because it's a sign that they really truly know what they're talking about.
Well, I like it first and foremost.
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about the tech. When I sort of first came to Hedera, I'd sort of had a dev background, and was getting into crypto. This is about 4 years ago now. Started buying a bit, and I was like, well, I'm buying it, but what does it actually do? So then I started looking into Ethereum, into the EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine, and Solidity, which is the programming language to code these contracts that live on the EVM. And it was interesting. It was sort of a bit of a learning curve going from a Web2 background straight into the deep end in sort of Solidity and EVMs. There's a new language to learn, new concepts like gas. But I then found out about Hedera. And it was actually one of my buddies from uni, from college. We call it university in obviously uni in the UK. And he was like, Jake, have you heard about Hedera? And I was like, dude, what is Hedera, man? Go to the website. I see all of that governing council, those sort of names which I alluded to earlier, and then just went straight to the documentation. And I was then doing what I was doing on Ethereum, except I was doing it with the software developer kits that Hedera provides out the box, which is a much more friendly way to create things like tokens so you can use your traditional language and your traditional object-orientated style of programming, where you import your library and you read the docs, create a transaction. It becomes much more friendly and accessible for people who haven't made that big transition over.
Okay, now, and that's something I wanted to then ask you as well, is it's like, right, all of these projects, and we're developing a space that we want to drive to the future, right?
Right.
And one thing that is important is making it intuitive and accessible for somebody that maybe doesn't have that knowledge or doesn't know much about this, right?
Yeah.
So how important is it to you that this becomes accessible to those who don't know really too much about this? And what is Hedera doing to make this and fulfill this?
Yeah, well, I put my hands up here and say that's hopefully what I'm doing, because I'm part of the developer relations team. And I think really sort of totally we need to make it as easy as possible for developers to just come up and start interacting with our network. A lot of that comes from documentation. Some of it comes from marketing and awareness. People need to know about us first.
Yeah.
But really, the way that I see it, there's two key target audiences that we need to cater to. We've obviously got that Web2 path, which I was saying earlier, and that's more suited for people who, and I'm going to quote one of my buddies who said this. He said, if you want to build something on the blockchain, but you're not a blockchain guy, look at Hedera. And that's because of those Web2 friendly SDKs. And for those Web2 developers who don't necessarily really understand what is gas, because that's a new concept when you're dealing with public ledgers where people who are operating these nodes need to get an incentive, and you need to pay gas for that incentive. If you're using your centralized stuff, You're just got like an API key. You create your account, boom, okay, I've topped up my account. That's how the person makes money, and I can just send API requests to them. And it's a very different way of going about it. Whereas in Web3, with that sort of public ledger, you need to now think about these things like gas and think about things like transaction cost. And actually what the native SDK, the Web2 audience is probably more suited for, is using those SDKs where you still pay the transaction fee, but it's almost hidden behind a layer where it's not immediately sticking out to you. Whereas on the EVM side, which again, for Web3 devs, we've been doing a massive push to make our Solidity EVM as compatible to the EVM which people are using on Ethereum. This has been something we've been working on really hard so that we can cater to that Web3 audience who do know about gas. They do know about optimizing smart contract calls and setting the right gas limit and doing sort of queries before to identify, okay, how much gas am I going to need, and making these optimizations using Solidity for the for the tokens and whatnot. And we've recently integrated support for Layer 0, which is the most popular bridge, allowing you to transfer tokens interoperably from one chain to another. Also, lots of support now for oracles, things like Chainlink, Supra, Pyth. These are partnerships which have been made and integrations which have been made over the past year and a half. And it's exactly so we can attract these Web3 developers, which is where most of the talent is.
Yeah.
There's obviously a massive audience of Web2 devs who we do need to tap into.
But these Web3 developers truly are trailblazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These are the ones who are innovating, where all of the Web3 projects are at the moment. These are the guys who know Solidity like the back of their hand. They've been doing it for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And of course, we do need to cater to this audience because that's the people who are the best of the best.
For sure.
And we want to have the best of the best coming to the layer, which is the best of the best.
Yeah, yeah. Now, it seems to be a common topic that I'm discussing on a quite regular basis. But this bridge between Web 2 and Web 3, right? And like, you know, it's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
And it's really more about when are these Web 2 projects going to not necessarily give in and accept, but just say, okay, it's time to become adaptable and versatile to what is to come. Yes or yes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, how important is that to you, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's to me, when I look at, let's say we're looking at the financial world and we're looking at obviously the big crypto blockchain talking points in the financial world is real world asset tokenization and these sorts of narratives that in 5-10 years everything's going to be tokenized, everything of value will be tokenized. And that to me is really important because it enables this democratization of investment and asset ownership, or fractional asset ownership, which historically has been totally impossible. Yeah. There's a lot of investments and a lot of equities and sort of opportunities which people are not able to tap into. They can't get any exposure to it because it might be, okay, you need to have minimum $20,000 or you need to be based in the United States or X, Y, and Z reason. And what this tokenization can really do and accomplish, especially when you have let's say a layer 1 like Hedera and many other layer 1s who have really, really cheap transaction fees, it means you can have this, say, smart contract, which is sort of the most optimized way of transacting value, swapping token A for token B, where token A might be a stable coin, token B might be an equity in your favorite company. And it will enable people from any part of the world where their currencies are maybe a bit weaker to go, oh, well, I can put a $5 in that, or I can put $10 in that. And it back to that sort of democratization point. I think that's going to be something which is really positive. And also from the business side, I mean, you look at the companies across the whole world which have the biggest revenue. It's your companies like Walmart, it's your companies like Amazon. And that's because they're serving to the common folk. They've got the highest revenue every single year, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. And it's because they're doing to the people, they're getting people like me or you who are buying $20 here, $30 there. That sort of liquidity has not been enabled yet by the existing financial institutions, but it can be with blockchain. So I think it's a really sort of great way for potentially distributing wealth better, or just giving people more exposure to stuff which they previously wouldn't have been able to have exposure to. But there are, of course, barriers in the way. The big one was regulation for a long time. That's looking like there's going to be sort of green lights there. So I'm excited to see how that develops within the United States in particular. But also another one of these barriers, which I always sort of look back to, is we really need to have everything on chain. It doesn't work if you're trying to swap fiat for a tokenized equity, because then you still have this Web2 to Web3 on ramp, and that part is not very efficient. What is efficient is, okay, if I have a stable coin and I want to swap it, cool. That's when the operational efficiencies are just there. It's fractions of a cent to do a peer-to-peer swap. No intermediaries needed. You don't need this middleman who's taken a 200 grand a year salary to broker a deal. Like, that's almost eliminated, but we need to have that stablecoin usage, or that other that token pair where both of the tokens are being highly used. And but I guess exciting to see where that develops as well, and maybe if that's something that the regulation, which will hopefully come, or regulatory clarity will come, will also be able to help enable.
Okay, wow, yeah. So really, yes, you're all in for the bridge between Web 2, Web 3, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think it needs to be sort of, I guess I've heard it less nowadays, but I remember a few years ago we were talking a lot about Web 2.5.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely that bridge that needs to come in. I mean, actually at HederaCon earlier, Lehman and Charles Hoskinson were talking about this a lot, and really it came with a backdrop of regulation, and this was a blocker for it preventing this crypto adoption, Web3 adoption proceeding.
Yeah.
But the way that they talk about it is sort of just the user experience, and it's another point I haven't quite mentioned, but I think we all know about it.
Absolutely.
The entry into Web3
Yeah.
with your wallets and your seed phrases, it's a barrier that a lot of people look at and go, maybe later.
Yeah.
But what these experts, who obviously are levels and levels and levels above me in terms of understanding of the tech, but also strategic and political and global business insights, and they were saying, actually, the way that it needs to go is it needs to be built in almost on the mobile devices. Have it so that Apple and Android, when they're creating their phones, they integrate it with Wallet, so that without even realizing it, you are interacting with public ledger. And if that's the case, then that would be awesome. That will eliminate that seed phrase type friction. And then obviously they talk a lot about decentralized recovery, DREC. There's this new DREC Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that DREC Alliance?
I have not.
Okay.
Can you tell me about it?
Yeah, of course. So it's a really positive, I think like a positive union of different layer one blockchains. So some of the founders are Hedera, Cardano, obviously Charles Hoskinson, XRP are part of the founding members, and it's like a multi-layer standard where these leaders in the industry have come together, appreciating that, currently, yes, it's great that we are enabling people to have total ownership of their assets, but that also has a big risk, and it can go wrong. What if you lose your private key? Or what if it gets stolen? And what decentralized recovery, or the DREC Alliance, aims to establish is a unified protocol that all of the chains follow. Because if they don't have a unified protocol, you get these sort of fragmentations, and it's just going to be everyone's in their own sort of bubble. But if you do have that, unified protocol, this DREC protocol, which they're really driving forwards, which will allow you, if you do lose your key, you've got these other sort of your buddies, your bank, whatever, they have a part of the ability to then recreate your key. So you sort of you fractionalize that key in a really secure way. I might give it to you, I might give it to my mum, and I might give it to a bank or a service provider who specializes in this. If I then end up losing my key, maybe let's say it's on the hardware of my phone and I lose my phone, I can then go to all of you and say, I've lost it, but you can recreate it. And having that in a uniform way, doesn't matter whether it's on Hedera or Cardano or XRP, you will be able to recover your key, and you will be able to keep the ownership of your assets. So it's trying to make it less risky, because that is obviously a massive risk, and a risk that a lot of people would not be interested in doing. But that's the DREC Alliance. Hopefully I've explained it well.
Oh, you explained it very well. It's another one of those things. It seems to me like, one, you're passionate about it, and two, you've talked about it quite a bit, because you do a very good job explaining it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you.
So in terms of Hedera, do you guys have anything big that you would like to announce? Anything upcoming?
So we've got hackathons upcoming. We've got, if you're listening in Kenya, We've got an in-person hackathon, which is happening between the 24th and the 30th of March, so next month. And that will be followed by a big in-person demo day on the 12th of April. So that's if there's any Kenyans in the audience, sign up. And probably maybe I could share some information for when this goes live.
Absolutely.
There's also other hackathons which are happening sort of later in the year, similar to what we've done in the past. Big global hackathons, totally online. Anyone in the world can come and join. I guess on the tech side, one of the things which I've been really excited about is something which I've been pushing at my role in DevRel and along with some other stakeholders and colleagues of mine is obviously AI agents.
Yeah.
So we're pushing really big on that. We've been pretty active in establishing our developer tooling so that people can actually start building AI agents on Hedera. I did a talk and a workshop on this yesterday at ETH Denver, basically showing our Eliza plugin, Eliza being probably the most popular Web3 AI agent framework, but also we've got support for other common AI agent kits like LangChain and so on. Well, actually, no, that's Eliza, only Eliza and LangChain, but you have the ability to integrate to other ones as well. So that's a pretty cool one. And that's something which we're pushing hard. Not sure when this is coming out, but we do have bounties at ETH Denver on AI agents and anything AI, I guess, and also EVM. And so there's bounties here in Denver. And what else? I guess there's, I'm going to miss stuff. There's another one thing which I do want to mention, which is a pretty cool innovation we've made with the EVM. And it's the ability to schedule smart contract calls. So you can think of it as a cron job, where a cron job is sort of a coding term or a system, a computer term, where you have like the ability to schedule the execution of a function. So it might be, I want to check the price of HBAR every single day. You could schedule a cron job using centralized systems to do that with like an API call. We've achieved the same thing with smart contracts, so it's totally on chain. And what's what you can do now, and this is what's the date today, 20 something of March or February.
You got the 25th.
25th. So what you can do as of the 25th of February is you can use the SDK to schedule the smart contract to execute in the future, like 2 months in the future. But what we're coming out with, and this should be on testnet around now as well, is the ability to actually schedule a smart contract call inside of a smart contract. So you can have a smart contract which basically schedules itself, calls itself as a function. And this is pretty cool when you want to do something like dollar cost averaging. So you might say currently you might be buying crypto from a decentralized exchange once every week. Well, actually, you can schedule that inside of the smart contract and it'd be totally on chain. You don't have to run your own server, which does this cron job approach. You do it on chain. You go, I want to buy this particular asset. I want to swap HBAR for that on chain, and you can schedule it, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's many other things which hopefully developers who are watching this, like yourself, would be able to maybe think of and sort of cool features that this would enable. But I think it's pretty powerful. It's sort of pretty novel. I've yet to hear any other chains have a similar service where it's all on chain. There are, of course, people who say, okay, we do it off chain using the traditional centralized way and we just call it a smart contract, but it's not quite as Web3. It's not that sort of decentralized approach. So that's something which I'm excited for. And yeah, there'll be more integrations. Look, another thing I'm excited for, the HBAR Foundation, who have now transitioned to the Hedera Foundation, or in the process of transitioning. They have taken some really positive. They sort of had a look at what's happened in the past, some of the problems there, and they've really refined the approach. They've got 2 new focuses, focusing on the traditional finance stuff, which they've been doing really well already, but also a big focus on retail, appreciating that these 2 parts of the industry, the retail and the traditional finance community, they're actually symbiotic. They're really mutually beneficial. Because you can have the best governance in the world, you can have the governing council like Hedera with all of these big names, and that might draw attention to a big industrial player. But then they ask the question, well, what's your total value locked? What's the sort of liquidity looking like? And that comes from retail at the moment. So if we don't have those numbers to back it, they're then going to go like, okay, look, I like the tech, the governance looks pretty safe, I trust it, but this needs to be higher. Then they'll look at maybe Solana, which has got billions and billions and billions of activity and whatnot. So there is a real appreciation of that now in the foundation. There's been some sort of internal movements and optimizations, but I think that's something which any HBARbarian and other people looking outside of the community in should be quite excited for. And if you are one of the people outside of the community looking in, and Hedera is catching your interest, have a look at the HBAR Foundation or the Hedera Foundation. That's their rebrand. It'll be in a couple of months when they do that. But have a look and apply for things like grants, because the approach that they're taking to that is also going to be more refined. So there's going to be higher velocity grants, something which they've been talking about a lot. I know one of our colleagues who worked with me, he's pivoted over to the foundation. He's working on the AI and Deepin fund, and he's a proper startup guy, man. He's been in the crypto space since like 2008, like was having Bitcoin when it hit 10K, and he was at these early events in Argentina at ETH events like years and years and years ago. And he was telling me they were cheering when Bitcoin hit 10K. But he is like proper startup guy, knows exactly what to look for. This is the type of people who are running the funds now. And it's really positive because that's the people that we need. We need people who know the game, who know about the velocity and the speed that products need to ship at, and who can appreciate that with smaller budgets you can get stuff done, but teams just need to get access to these smaller budgets and just need to get it quick so we can start pushing and growing that retail side of it. So if you are interested, head over to the HBAR Foundation website and definitely apply for a grant. I think it would be a good opportunity for sure.
For sure. And where else can we follow you guys?
Follow me.
Yeah.
So my name's Jake Hall, but my sort of crypto tag is JCool, Jay Cool H.
And he is a cool guy.
Come on, man. Appreciate that, bro. You're making me blush. So that's where you can find me. I'm pretty active. I actually do quite a lot of live streams where I'm like coding live. Often have people up who like I can maybe do a bit of pair programming with them, answer questions. So I'm pretty interactive. Hedera is just Hedera on Twitter, on X. Hedera everywhere.
Yep.
And I guess people like the HBAR Foundation, you can find them on X. They've taken more of the intern approach when it comes to social media, which is just way better because again we're on X. You don't need to be too professional. Obviously, you need to keep it within boundaries, but having that relatability and that meminess is just great for attracting people and making your posts reach out to more people. So that's another good follow. But those are probably the three key accounts. If you're a developer, you can follow Hedera_devs. That's our sort of dev-focused account. And I guess also if you're in a Spanish-speaking community, that's a community which we've really been focusing on because we've got a massive Spanish-speaking community. I think we've got Hedera ES, something to that effect. That's like a totally Spanish, everything's in Spanish. They also have this thing called the Hedera Hispana Hub, which I'm actually part of. I'm half Spanish, so I try to do a bit of speaking when I'm there.
¿Hablas en español?
Hablo español, sí. O sea que si eres español o hablas español, puedes conseguir la cuenta Hedera ES, y también tenemos una reunión cada 2 o 3 semanas solamente en español. Tenemos los desarrollos y builders y todo eso de nuestra comunidad de español, y es un sitio excelente para las personas que hablan español y que están en Centro Sudamérica.
Muy bien, Jake. Muy bien.
Deep breath.
Eso es por mi gente. Bueno, Jake, so nice to meet you, brother.
Good to meet you as well.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yep.
Brought to you by Hedera and Foresight Ventures.
Hey, what's up?
But it's not something Genzio is afraid of.
If you want to survive, you got to build a hive.
No, we do not understand that we do not want to have. Ladies and gentlemen.
We're back at the Genzio Media House.
Oswald, thanks so much for joining us today.